Hello everyone, I'm Cool Guy. Welcome back. Lots of news for the Destiny universe this week. Lots to talk about in the upcoming weeks. And leading up to that, we do have a brand new season that dropped at Tuesday's reset. Season of Arrivals came out and new gear is here. I want to take an in-depth look at the Season Pass exotic Witherhoard. I figured out a really good damage loop to use with it, and it's insane. There's a setup, there's a pattern, massive damage. It also has a catalyst, and you definitely want that. You need that. And I can't wait to show you this thing's potential, and I can't wait for you to go out there and try some of these things. There are so many cool things to go over, things to try, builds to make, things to make the most out of it. There's massive PvE and PvP applications. You can do a lot with it. And remember, as we go on, this is an exotic. It's immune to sunset. I feel it's going to be a part of players' loadouts for certain activities. It's a solo player's dream, especially when you build around it. And as a fire team and fire team play, I can see it being used for a lot of situations. The damage that you can make is crazy good. If you have the season pass, you get it right at the start, and for free-to-play players, you get it at level 35. It's an exotic, kinetic 90 RPM. It's kind of like the kinetic fighting lion. It has two perks that work together. They work beside each other. Now, they may look the same, but there are two separate things going on. I'm going to go over all the numbers, the duration, what you can do with it. There's internal damage, there's external damage, lots to talk about. The exotic perk is Primeval's Torment. Projectiles fired by this weapon blight the target or nearby area on impact. The second perk is blighted targets take damage over time and blight the nearby enemy on death. That's called Break the Bank. So when fired, it shoots out a blight. This projectile bounces, it can go off walls, ceilings, and hit the ground, or you can do a direct impact. These are the two types of damages to pay attention to. First, if you direct impact an enemy, it essentially goes inside them, eating at them from the inside. This is your internal damage. The blight does tick damage over time, and from the moment the first tick happens to the final tick, it lasts for about 9 seconds. There are 17 total ticks. And note that when you direct impact an enemy and the blight goes inside of them, you are doing full damage with Witherhoard. There's an impact number when you direct impact them, then it starts the first tick, and then on the 9th second, the 17th tick comes out. So on this ogre, it does 3,169 damage per tick. So a total of 53,873 damage spread over 9 seconds. So it's very good damage for what you're doing. Remember, this takes special ammo. If you were to keep shooting the ogre, the damage doesn't stack. However, there's something bigger going on. I'm gonna get into that in a moment. If the blight is inside and you kill that enemy, it will drop the blight on the ground. When it hits the ground, from the center, a pool on the ground expands, and by my estimate, it's around 9 meters front to back. And to give that visual representation, I have the outer ring right next to a heavy box. It's fairly large, and when it's on the ground, either by the blighted enemy that you just killed that dropped, or you just shoot it at the ground yourself, this pool on the ground does exactly half damage to whatever touches it. As an example, when you shoot it next to the ogre's feet, it does 1,585 damage. And remember, on the inside, it's 3,169. It stays on the ground for about 8 seconds. It depends on where you start timing. It could be 7, could be 8. But that 8 I counted is the time when the middle of the blight goes up and then it goes away. Now the tick damage does go on for a little bit after that. That's where the 9 seconds comes from. But this one on the ground is the external blight. You can shoot this on the ground at any time. It's the one that drops from the enemy if you get a kill from the direct impact. And that's how you kind of think of it. When it's inside, it does full damage. When it's outside, it does half damage. Even though the one shot at the feet or the one that drops does half damage, it does tick more frequently. I did 5 tests and the number that came up the most was 25 ticks. So this is 39,625 damage. As far as shooting it on the ground, there is still an impact damage number as well. That number is going to be tied to how far away the enemy is from the blight when it goes off. If you were to shoot an enemy over and over, the tick damage does not stack. However, if an internal and external blight is being used, those will work together. So you can shoot one directly at them, that one's going inside doing damage, then one directly at their feet, that one's outside doing its tick damage. But here's where it gets cool and how I like to use it and how I encourage you to try it. There's a really cool damage loop going on. Again, if you're to shoot this internal blight over and over, the damage on the tick does not stack, but you are doing something else. The first direct impact for the blight is 619 damage, but once the enemy is blighted, once it's inside, you can direct impact again. That number is going to jump way up to 9,285. Now for reference, that's just a tad bit more than what a rapid fire sniper rifle does. So think of this second impact when you shoot it, it's just a little bit more than a low impact sniper shot. Importantly, even though the tick damage does not stack, what it's doing and what you're doing is you're resetting that 9-second timer of tick damage. So what you should be doing on these big enemies is direct impacting them for the internal blight, you reload, drop the external blight at the floor. That way you have both of these tick damages working together. But after that second one you shoot at the floor, reload, and then you switch to your Vorpal Sword, your Spike Grenade Launcher, your heavy damage dealing weapon. It could be a primary, and that primary could have Vorpal, could have just really good perks. So as an example, you bring out the Spike Grenade Launcher, you shoot 4 or 5 shots, you do 3 or 4 swipes with the sword. After you do that, you pull back out the Witherhoard, shoot them again, and again, that damage is like you're shooting just a single rapid fire sniper shot, but importantly, you're resetting that time over again back to 9 seconds. Then you switch back to your other weapons and keep dealing sustained damage. And that's why the Catalyst is so important. The Catalyst grants handling and auto-loading holster. We'll talk about that in a moment. I mean, just doing this, it completely destroys the Ogre way too fast, but to kind of simulate what you're going to be doing, I'm using the Sealed Ahamkara Grasp on the Hunter, and remember with that one, if you get a hit with a melee, it auto-reloads whatever's in your hand, so in this case, the Grenade Launcher. So in a perfect world, imagine a big boss, a lot of health, or imagine a champion, imagine your lower light going against a bigger enemy. You throw the nade for the one that goes inside, you drop one at the feet, you have your 2 tick damages going on. Don't mind me throwing the smoke grenade auto reload, just imagine it's going to be auto reloading after I shoot those 2 shots. Switch to the heavy, pop off the rounds in the magazine, then you switch back to this exotic, hit them again to extend that duration even further to 9. You just keep doing that over and over. Then you switch to your primary and so on, just rinse and repeat. And that Catalyst grants the more handling and auto loading. You want that auto loading to be able to do this. You need it, but wait, there's more. It gets a little bit better. As a solo player or in a group activity, to use certain perks, certain exotics. As an example, it does work with Divinity, so if a teammate is helping you out, that can happen. But right here is Disruption Break. Remember, you break an enemy shields, it deals 50% more damage. So with Disruption Break, that 3,169 goes up to 4,754. Now Disruption Break goes for 5 seconds, but you still get that added damage. So think about the Minotaurs, the Cabal, all things that have shields. You can break the shields real quick and then just start laying down the one that goes with a direct impact, then one at the feet. But let's go even further. Let's take something like the Felwinter's Helm exotic. There's a card at the top of the screen, there's a link down below to my full review. Felwinter's Helm shoots out a burst of energy, and enemies caught in that are debuffed, and you deal 30% more damage. So with Witherhoard, that 3,169 goes up to 4,120, 30% more. So then you start doing separate things. What about stacking Felwinters with Disruption Break? So that 3,169 goes to 6,179. Those together are 95% more damage. And again, keep in mind, this isn't even having the one with the floor added. This is just off the direct impact internal one. But there's more. Like, what about Felwinter with Disruption Break with a Well? All 3 of those, the tick damage goes from 3,169 to 7,724. 144% more damage from base. And none of that's taken into account the other shot at the feet. It's not taken into account switching to a heavy nade launcher or a Vorpal Sword or a firing line linear fusion, nothing like that. And it's not taken into account, importantly again, that you would switch back with auto-loading holster to shoot another shot to extend the timer just to keep that damage going. It's a very lethal damage loop. Say that the enemy in PvE doesn't have shields, say you can't use Disruption Break, say you can't debuff them with something like Felwinters, or the Strike from the Titan, things like that. This right here, this damage loop, this procedure is crazy good. It's almost endless, it's like infinite. And that's why auto-loading from the Catalyst is huge, and you need it and you want it. And I try to imagine this Ogre and other bosses like having infinite health. This could go on for a very, very long time, until I run out of other ammo, probably. For PvE, as a conclusion here, and to wrap it up fully, what it's really shining at is the sustained damage while taking special ammo. That loop I went over from blighting the inside, blighting the outside, switch to other weapons, deal heavy damage, let it auto-reload in the background, then you pull it back out, tag them with it, extending the duration all over again back to 9 seconds, switching back, and so on. It's a solo player's dream, and in a fire team, you can deal massive damage with that overall loop. Not to mention, there are the ads or the blights that are going to be dropping in the area. You're mostly working about higher tier enemies when you're running this. If you direct impact a mid tier, they're just going to run around until it consumes them, then they'll just drop it wherever they ended up. Then ads can run into that, and you can get kills that way. And all the while it's taking green ammo. It's top tier in my opinion. And with this damage loop, I kind of look at it as if I need something to drop fast, or say I'm under leveled, say I'm doing a legendary Lost Sector, like this is what I want to do. It's perfect. Time's gonna tell in practice, but doing tests and kind of doing it in regular play, general play, it's excelling. Moving on to the Crucible, same thing. Internal Blight does 80 damage. It's going to down a Guardian if you direct impact them. If it's on the floor, if they run through it, it does 40 damage. It's half. If your enemy's in a super, it will down them. Aside from the well, for a well, you do need the internal and external, so one direct impacted, one at the feet, that will down them. It takes a Titan out of their bubble, it takes out Storm, Dawnblade, and so on. But a couple of interactions. Middle Tree Sentinel, it will block it dead in its tracks, but the Titan has to stay in front of it. If they pass through it, they're going to take damage. A Whirlwind Guard, Arcstrider, will deflect it right back at you, and of course, the Antaeus Sword Titan will definitely throw it right back at you. After using it in the Crucible, it has a couple really good things about it, and after time, I started using it a certain way. For one, if you see someone in a corner or emote peeking, you can throw it on the corner. You're going to make them move, and I'm going to talk about this a lot. If you're looking down a choke point, you can throw it down in that choke point and make them jump over it. That's the only thing you can do, is jump right over it. I found the most success with Witherhoard in the Crucible doing two things. Number one is that when a player's rushing you, you simply drop it right at your feet. Most of the time, they're going to be on the ground too, looking for a knee slide. But if they knee slide, they're pretty much going to stop dead in their tracks right in the center of it, making them an easy target. They're going to take a lot of damage from the pool. You're going to be up in the ground, you're going to be backpedaling, you're going to be able to clean them up. But the second thing is I've been using it to make people primary me. All those times you throw it in a choke point, all those times you're using it to zone that area, you make them either A, retreat, B, take another route, C, stop and primary you, or D, jump over it. There's no real in between here. All of those are a good situation, because if they jump over it, you have your primary out, they're in the air, they're less accurate from the air. If they go through it, obviously that's bad for them. This is mainly where I've settled with it currently. I use it to zone off, make players primary me. Right now it's fast forward gameplay of me throwing the blight down at a choke point, stepping back to my primary, making people primary me. It lasted forever. Because when you throw it down, there's nowhere to go. The only thing they could do is jump over it. And again, they're not as accurate from the air. And you're backpedaling away because you're provoking the primary duel. The direct impacts happen from time to time, but the main draw is making your enemies move one way or the other. So when using it, have a strong energy primary weapon, summoner, gnawing, a hand cannon, just a good weapon. Cut that area off, make them duel you, and when they get close, drop it at your feet, create space. It's a perfect anti-rush weapon, not very good for going on long streaks with. It's not really super lethal, but it's lethal in other ways. And that kind of sums up the Witherhoard. In PvE, it's about sustained damage that's a near infinite damage loop. It's as long as you have primary and heavy ammo, and it's really high for taking special ammo. Then you can add to it with debuffs and other tools in your arsenal. That's just going on in the background while you're doing big damage with other weapons. And you just switch back, keep the tick damage going, it's really good. And in the Crucible, it's not about how lethal it is or can be. It has its moments, it's more so about what you're making other players do. The flavor text says it best, like a one-man private security company, the Drifter. If you're looking for a new controller and partner with Scuf, there's a link in the description down below, and you can use my code at checkout for a discount. If you're new here, remember to hit the subscribe button, and if you are subscribed, thank you so much for your support. Ring the bell to get videos right when they go live. There's lots of content to talk about. What do you think about Witherhoard? Try the damage loop that was talked about in today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next one, I am Cool Guy.